lovelies, and welcome to the Heaven's Halo Cardigan Stitch Guide! This is my first ever pattern for knitting with needles, and over the years I've gotten many requests for different knit stitch tutorials, so I compiled a bunch of basic stitches into this video. I will say that you'll notice that this tutorial does not have a material section. If you choose to purchase the pattern, it also comes with the stitch calculator, which tells you the exact stitch counts for your measurements and exactly how much yarn you need. This is not the full pattern, however, I included all the basic stitches in this tutorial, so you could technically make this for yourself. But if you'd like to purchase the pattern, the link is in the description. So let's get started! So we're going to make the panels in stockinette, and for stockinette you knit into all the knit stitches and purl into all the purl stitches. For the front and back panels, I decided to do the opposite stitch at the beginning and end of each row to try to offset some of the curling at the sides, but mainly so that I know where to pin when I'm blocking. Also, you'll notice that I tension my yarn here. So yeah. First, to make the knit stitch, you're going to insert your needle from the front to the back in the middle of the first unworked stitch. Your needles will always be in this orientation to knit. Wrap your yarn around the right hand needle that's at the back, and with the tip of the needle pull a loop to the front before sliding it off the left needle and onto the right needle, and then just continue to do that in each stitch all the way down. So insert, wrap your yarn around, pull up a loop, and slide it onto the right needle. Easy as that. Do the opposite stitch at the end of the row, and then turn your work to begin working on the next row. To purl, insert your needle from the back to the front of the next unworked stitch, and then throw your working yarn over the needle in the front. Push the working yarn from the front to the back of the stitch and slide it onto the right needle. Again, insert, yarn over, push a loop through, and slide it onto the right needle. Your needles will always be in this orientation to purl, with the right hand needle in the front and the left hand needle in the back. And we're at the end of the row again, so we're just going to make the opposite stitch at the end of the row, and then turn our work to begin the next row. Again, the front and the back panels are worked in stockinette stitch, so just purl in all the purl stitches and knit in all the knit stitches. So almost all the footage for making the hand warmers got corrupted, so I just decided to refilm the instructions for the increases and decreases on the dress I'm currently working on. This dress is the companion to the Heaven's Halo Cardi, so keep an eye out for this pattern. So to slip knit, you're going to insert your needle into the first unworked stitch as if to knit, but don't actually knit it, and then slide it off the left needle and onto the right needle. Repeat this and slip the next unworked stitch as well. Then insert your left needle through the two slip stitches from the back through to the front of the right needle. Even though this isn't how we usually get here, our needles are now in position to make the knit stitch. Wrap your working yarn around the right needle at the back and knit through both slipped stitches. This creates a left-leaning decrease. Et voila! 2 stitches have just become 1. I'm going to knit a few more stitches in stockinette until I have 2 more knit stitches left on my left needle. So to knit 2 together, first insert your needle not through the next unworked stitch, but through both the second and first unworked loops on your left needle. You may feel like it's a little bit difficult to insert your needle all the way through, so to keep these stitches from stretching out, bring them to the tips of both needles. Wrap your working yarn around your back needle and pull the working yarn up through both stitches to knit the 2 of them together, hence the name. This creates a right-leaning decrease, and as you can see, both of those stitches have also become 1. So now we're going to increase. So to knit front back, first knit into the first stitch, but do not pull it off the left needle. And this is what it'll look like so far. So then turn your work to the back and then insert your right hand needle into the back loop of the stitch that you just knitted into. Wrap your yarn around your needle and knit the back loop as well. and then slide both of these off your needle. Needed a little help there. And there, one stitch has just gotten increased into 2. So let's do that again. Insert, yarn over, pull up a loop as if to knit, but do not pull the loop off your needle yet. Then turn your work to the back. Insert your right needle into the back loop of that same stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then slide it onto the right needle. To knit in the round using the magic loop method, cast all of your stitches onto your needle. I'm using the long tail cast on here. Once you've cast on the amount of stitches that you need, bring all of your cast on stitches to the middle of the wire that connects your circular needles. Now that they're on the wire, divide your cast on stitches into 2. This doesn't really need to be super accurate, and then slide them back over onto the needles. I have a little sped up montage here to show you what that looks like. Make sure that none of your cast on stitches are twisted and that they're all in the same orientation, so then your cast on edge isn't twisted. And here's what it looks like so far. Now you have half your stitches on the left needle and half your stitches on the right needle. You're going to switch the first stitch and the last stitch onto the opposite needles so that your first row doesn't have a ladder when switching from one needle to another. Ladders are created from bad tension, but we can secure the first row by switching these stitches. Turn your needles so then they point to the right and pull the back needle out from its cast on stitches and bring it to the front to get ready to knit. Insert your needle into the first stitch and yarn over, but pull your working yarn a little tighter than usual and then knit 1. Maintain this tension by putting your finger down on the first stitch that you've knit. A stitch or 2 will be hugging the cord at the back, but that's okay because pulling the yarn tight keeps any ladders from appearing when you switch from one needle to another. Next, knit every cast on stitch on the needle as you normally would. So now we're coming up on the last few stitches on our needle. When you get to the end, your needle in your left hand will be freed. Now turn your work so then your needles point to the right again. Pull your loose needle onto the unworked stitches, and then, once again, pull the back needle out to the front to knit the next row. When knitting that first stitch, remember to pull the working yarn tight to maintain tension. Knit down the needle again, and then once you've finished knitting into the stitches on this needle and your yarn tail is on your left, you have knitted one entire row. At some point, we're all going to run out of yarn eventually, and you can use whatever method of joining yarn that you like, but for this pattern, I'm teaching the clasp weft join. So with about 4 inches left on my yarn tail, I like to pick up my next ball of yarn and then pull out a certain length and then pull it into a loop. Pull your yarn tail into the loop you've made with your new yarn and then clasp it together. That's the best way of explaining it. I tried to keep the clasp about an inch away from my work because by knitting both the old and the new strands, I'm effectively weaving my ends in. After creating the clasp, I like to knit at least 4 to 6 stitches. I try to make sure that they're not twisted, that way they lie somewhat flat. And as you notice, I am about to knit the switch over and it's super clean. Yeah, that's 2, and another one, 3, and now we are using the new yarn here. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. This is the 4th stitch, and this is my 5th stitch. For the next stitch, I'm going to drop my yarn tail. That way I'm just completely knitting with the new yarn. If we look at the back, here are our yarn tails. I like to sew these in, but you can also cut them if you like, because we've technically already sewn our ends in because we used the clasp weft join. And here's what the join looks like. The yarn just looks a little thicker, so just be sure to knit into the old and the new yarn together so then you're not accidentally increasing. Once you're done knitting the sleeve, you can either bind off normally or bind off in a way that will keep your stockinette from curling. To do so, first turn your needle towards you so then you can see the purl bumps on the inside of the sleeve. We're going to be focusing on the purl bumps one row away from the needle, not the purl bumps next to the needle itself. You will see that the purl bumps in this row have smiles and frowns. Pick up a smile closest to the purl bump next to your needle and then place it on your left needle. If you turn your work to the front, this is what it will look like. The next thing you want to do is insert your right needle into both the first stitch and the purl stitch that you just placed on your needle. Then knit these two stitches together. And then to finish your bind off, pick up the stitch closest to your right hand, pass it over the next stitch and over the tip of the needle so then it lays horizontal to the base of your second stitch. You've bound off one. And then you're just going to continue picking up the closest smile and then putting it on the needle, knitting it, and then binding off as usual. Binding off like this usually means that your hem will not be very stretchy. However, you can yarn over before knitting into the next stitch to give it some ease. So to do this, first you're going to yarn over and then turn your work to the back to pick up the purl smile from the second purl row. Place that purl stitch onto your needle and then knit the purl stitch and the next unworked stitch together. And then with your left needle, pick up the yarn over and the first stitch and slide those two over the third stitch and over the tip of your needle so then it sits horizontal at the base of the third stitch. You've bound off one and now your hem is a little bit stretchier than it usually would be. Once you've bound off every stitch in the row, cut your yarn and then thread your yarn tail through a needle. I like to anchor the yarn tail into the first bind off before pulling the yarn tail through the last loop, and then pull this last loop to tighten. And there's our stretchy hem. Now repeat this all again to make another sleeve, and now we're going to wash and block our pieces. Wash and block all of your pieces before sewing them. I made a separate video for this, so be sure to follow the instructions on your yarn label while following along with my video tutorial. So now we're going to mattress stitch everything together. So first we're going to start with attaching the front panels to the back panels. So for the shoulders, match up your seams. Find the first stitch on the right. You're going to pull your needle through as well as your yarn through and then pull it taut. Then find the next stitch on the left, pull your yarn through from the bottom to the top. And then go back to the right, find the next stitch, and pull your yarn up from the bottom to the top once again. And then just continue this until you've finished attaching your front panels to your back panels. I've included a little diagram here as well to help you visualize this movement. Once you've sewed your back and front panels together, match up your side seams with the right sides of both panels facing you. Insert your needle under the bar between your first stitch closest to the edge and your second stitch, pull your yarn up and through. Go to the other side and then once again, find the matching bar between the stitch closest to the edge and the second stitch and insert your needle under that bar, pull it up and through once again. Repeat for the other side and continue this along the seam. But don't seam it up all the way, you do want to leave a few inches of space for your sleeves. Here's another diagram for mattress stitching the sides together. So to attach the sleeve to the body, match up the shoulder seam with the top of the sleeve and the tail of the cast-on edge of the sleeve to the tail that's in the armpit of the cardigan. Fold the body of the cardigan inside out so that the right sides of the body of the cardi and the sleeve are together. Pin your sleeve to the sleeve opening at the top by the shoulder, at the bottom by the armpit, and then in between those 2 points. Open the cardigan up so then the right sides are facing you again, and then from the armpit, sew around the sleeve opening. For every stitch that you pick up from the sleeve, you will pick up either 1 or 2 bars from the body of the cardigan. So find the bar between the stitches closest to the edge and the second stitch. We are going to be sewing there once again. You may need to pick up more stitches from one side or another depending on how much extra fabric you have in your sleeve opening. So to check this, just pull your sleeve tight and then see if there's any excess fabric on one side or another from the point that you've sewn to the stitch marker. If there's any extra fabric on one side, sew a little more on that side. Continue to match your stitch around the sleeve opening. Once you've reached a stitch marker, you can remove it, and then just keep removing stitch markers the more that you sew. And here's the final diagram for attaching the sleeve to the body of the cardigan. Once you've sewn all the pieces together, add your I-cords and you're done. Let's have another look. Also, as you can see from my pattern testers photos, this cardigan is so easy to customize. If you tried this out for yourself, please tag me at Seams by Sky. I would love to see what you make. And if you enjoyed this video, kindly hit the like and subscribe button to join the stitches in our seam, and I will be seeing you next time.